Donald Trump is looking in that old rearview mirror and saying so long to Jack Smith. The special counsel read the writing on the wall. I mean, it wasn't that hard to read. These cases weren't going to survive under a Trump DOJ. So I guess in a way, he beat him to the punch. He officially dropped the two federal cases against Trump today. That's a grand total of what, 44 criminal charges from the January 6th and classified documents cases? Now, all gone. Look, one way or another, this was inevitable under a Trump DOJ after he won the election and appointed his own attorney general. Special counsel obviously serves at the pleasure of the AG. Did anyone really think that the incoming AG, whoever it ends up being, maybe Pam Bondi, was going to ask Jack Smith to stay on? Surely they remember Jeff Sessions, right? And several others. And yes, Trump did threaten to fire Jack Smith, but today's decision was actually Smith's and Smith's alone. He says he is following long-standing DOJ policy that says the DOJ cannot prosecute a sitting president. Of course, he's not a sit-in, he's a president-elect, but that's a detail. You get the idea. But he is leaving behind one very clear message. Smith writes in his filing on the January 6th case, this outcome is not based on the merits or strength of the case against the defendant. In other words, he is standing by everything that he has already brought forward. He also asked both cases to be dismissed without prejudice, meaning that it's possible they could actually bring them again when Trump is out of office. We're also learning that he plans to file a final report now that the investigations are officially over. And the AG, Merrick Garland, actually plans to receive and also publicly release that report. But in the meantime, get ready for another version of the 2024 blame game, because people want to know when they who saw Trump go to trial are asking themselves, what went wrong here? Someone long pointed the finger at this man, the Attorney General himself, Merrick Garland. They argue that he dragged his feet by not appointing Jack Smith until nearly 2 years after January 6th. Now others, they say, look no farther than this man, Mitch McConnell. He could have rallied Republicans to convict Trump in his second impeachment trial, and that would have barred him from running for president again. But the blame game's not done, because there's the Judicial Nine, and the Supreme Court it is. It closed the door on a trial before Election Day by granting Trump partial immunity. At least some of them did. That's, of course, after it slow-walked that very decision, fueling Trump's tried and true, and frankly proven strategy of delay, delay, delay. Started like the Scarecrow in the Wizard of Oz, and they're doing all this, pointing different directions. Well, now the president-elect is taking a bit of a victory lap, and he is telling the cases should have never, ever been brought. And he says he persevered against all odds and won. Elections do have consequences. They do also have celebrations. We're here to discuss the lead investigator for the House Select January 6th Committee and former federal prosecutor, Tim Hafey. Good evening to you, Tim. Let's talk about this because Trump, he is, of course, declaring victory. Was justice served by this decision to dismiss these cases?
No, Laura, absolutely not. It is an escape of accountability without precedent. The committee for which I worked found, even then, when we stopped our investigation, very strong evidence of the violations of federal criminal statutes. I think Jack Smith only got additional evidence and had more meat on the bones of the story that the committee told. So the evidence in this case, as the special counsel said in his motion today, was quite strong, that there was specific intent to disrupt and interfere with an official proceeding, and the fact that there will be no legal accountability for at least the next 4 years is a loss for the rule of law, not a victory.
Well, I wonder about the timing, because that was really the real big talking point and frankly topic for a lot of people. It did take more than 2 years to charge Trump. They had charged other people, by the way, but those charges came after and 8 months after your committee recommended those charges. So what happened in your view? I mean, did they slow walk it for a significant or good reason, or is this just the way that it unfolded?
Hard to say, Laura, without having been in the room within the Department of Justice when these discussions were had. It was clear to us, the select committee, that we were getting to some really important witnesses with direct personal knowledge of these criminal offenses before they had been contacted by the Department of Justice. It seems clear that it wasn't until the Select Committee revealed some of that evidence, that the Department of Justice really started to focus on not just people rioting at the Capitol, but all of the context and the crucial fake electors and attempts to pressure state officials and Vice President Pence, all the things that we reveal. So yeah, well, if you look at that timeline, arguably if that investigation had started sooner, it could have proceeded more quickly and there could have been accountability sooner.
Do you see the election of Donald Trump, in spite of these cases, as a kind of mandate from the voters that they did not want these cases to go forward?
No, absolutely not. I think the election results can explain by other underlying conditions going on in this country, not a direct reflection on the merits of the criminal case. Perhaps it was a factor for some, but I don't believe that you can interpret the result of the election in the middle of the economic issues that we've had, in the middle of all of the other serious issues facing this country discussed by the candidates, as any kind of referendum by the public on the merits of these charges.
I mean, everyone seems to know, or at least tell people they know what the exact mandate is, and it's as shifting, I think, as the sands, depending on who's actually saying it. Let me ask you, do you think that not Merrick Garland, but Jack Smith should have waited to be fired? What were the risks of that? I suppose if he waited to be fired by Trump as promised, then the report that was going to be due would ultimately be in the hands of the new AG appointee.
Yeah, Laura, I think Jack Smith has always played by the book. And the book here is really clear that the Department of Justice cannot proceed with criminal charges against the sitting president. And given that there was no trial date scheduled, there was still a lot of pretrial litigation to go, he did what the department policy dictates that he do, and that is step away from the prosecution. He made clear that it's not a reflection of the merits of the case, but he's a by-the-book person. Merrick Garland is a by-the-book person. And this decision is by the book. Elections do have consequences, regardless of whether they are a mandate from people about this case. They have consequences. And this is the outcome that is dictated by longstanding Department of Justice policy.
You know, Trump and his inner circle have repeatedly said they're going to investigate the people who investigated Trump. I mean, listen to Trump's pick for Attorney General, Pam Bondi.
The Department of Justice, the prosecutors will be prosecuted, the bad ones. The investigators will be investigated because the deep state, last term for President Trump, they were hiding in the shadows, but now they have a spotlight on them and they can all be investigated and the house needs to be cleaned out.
Are you concerned that you might be a target of their investigation, having been a part of at least one?
No, candidly. Look, they can investigate and ask questions and seek information, but it takes facts and evidence to actually have a legal consequence. The rule of law really does still, at bottom, stand for something. It would have to go to regular people, regular Americans in a criminal justice process. And no, everything that the committee did was under the authority of the House of Representatives, and the information that was found was the product of a lawful process. The same with Jack Smith and his investigators. You could question the decision to pursue it, but you certainly can't question the under color of law operation that both the committee and the investigators took. So no, I'm not concerned about any potential long-term legal consequence.
Let's hope you're right, Tim Hafey. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, Laura.